Hello, Oak Lawn. Welcome to our Channel 4 studios. I'm Mayor Sandra Berry, and I'm here today with Aileen Kokoska with PLOWS. And we're going to talk about some excellent programs they have, and one very excellent one in particular that we think many residents would find interesting. So, Aileen, you're with PLOWS. How long have you been with them?
So I have an interesting story. I worked for PLOWS for about 15 years, back from 1989 to about 2004. Then I went back, got my master's in social work, and I'm since back about a year and a half.
Very
So,
nice.
so I feel like I'm back home again.
You're
So
full
it's wonderful.
circle.
Yes,
Very good.
yes, absolutely.
Very good. And can you tell us what PLOWS is, just in a very general sense? It's a premier senior organization, correct?
Yes, it is for Suburban Cook County. So one of the biggest questions that's asked is, what does PLOWS stand for? So PLOWS stands for Payless, Lamont, Orland, and Worth Townships. We service about 20 communities
Stickney
within.
too in there, I think.
Well, S
S?
was used to be for Stickney until they started their agency, their
Okay.
aging agency. So we do some collaboration with them, but we are, separate,
Okay.
from them. So, but way back when, yeah, because
Yeah.
PLOWS has been around for a long time, over 40 years. We've
Yeah.
been providing services to the older adults in the community.
And residents will see literature with PLOWS on it and maybe not know what that means. And so you provide services for primarily seniors, right?
Correct.
How about disabled adults also?
We do. So within our Adult Protective Services unit, we do serve those that are 18 to 59 as well. And, we get a lot of phone calls, every day, people reaching out to us, asking questions, and it's not necessarily older adults. It might be family members,
Correct.
caregivers, doctors' offices, home health agencies, professionals in the field also reaching out to us for some assistance and guidance, or services that we offer.
So can you give just a few examples of services before we talk about one particular service?
Sure. So the majority of our programs focus around case management.
Okay.
So, we do work with state and federal funding, and those programs are, obviously set by the government, so we follow those guidelines. One of the programs is called the Community Care Program, which is funded through the Illinois Department on Aging. So that will allow folks, older adults, 60 and older, to have a home care aide come out and help them with activities of daily living.
Wow.
So there is an assessment process that needs to, happen. So usually that will come in through our intake department. We're very thorough and comprehensive. That's another service that we provide as well. So as folks are calling, we're kind of taking them through what their needs are, identifying what the need is, and then trying to determine what would be the best service based on income and based on need.
So if there's a senior who really wants to stay in their house, but maybe needs more help than they did, a few years ago, but a resident sees them struggling, do people call and refer the service to them, or how does the participant have to make that connection, or can a concerned loved one also do that?
Absolutely. Either way, we get many phone calls from folks in the community that maybe have a neighbor or family members that are calling on behalf of their loved ones out of care and concern. And from there, we will do an intake, kind of, as I said before, take them through the process. And then we try to make contact with those folks.
And
we do a lot of home visits as well.
The scope of your services is phenomenal. What an incredible resource. And these are services available to everyone, or just low income, or how does that work?
It really depends upon the program.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily have to be income or asset based. So the community care program, as I talked about, does have an asset limitation.
Okay.
But we can work with folks around that in terms of trying to figure out what program would fit best for their needs.
Wonderful organization.
Yes,
And you
we are.
have independent board, and you have, so many facets. And do you have any idea when it was established?
I believe they were incorporated maybe in 1973.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time. And
Long roots in our community.
yes,
And
yep.
So when I think of the village of Oak Lawn, many people don't know, but we have a statistically higher number of seniors than other communities around here.
Yes.
And many of the folks who moved into Oak Lawn when it was just being built up are now very much in need of services and extra attention. We're struggling, for example, Oak Lawn doesn't have any senior housing, and many people want to stay in the area, but they find it harder and harder, for a number of reasons, but they want to still go to their church, see their friends, all of that. And so you have a really cool program that I wanted residents to know about, and it's called the Shared Housing Program.
Correct.
What is that?
Right, and you hit the point right on the head in terms of our shared housing program allows folks to be able to age in place and stay in their homes. And that's the first question I'm asked if I get a housing call with someone in the community, and that is, what is shared housing? And shared housing is basically a matching program of a home provider. So someone that is seeking affordable housing, we try to match with a provider that has a room to rent, whether that be in their private home, a condo, a mobile home, or even an apartment that they're renting.
So, how does one, so let's talk first about the people who might have a space to rent. Okay, so is it a family? Is it another senior? Who is the typical person?
It is generally, it can be an older adult, 60 or older. I have a few home providers that are younger. So according to our grant funding that we get actually through Oak Lawn as well as Cook County, which we're so fortunate to have, one of the couple have to be 62 or older.
62 or older. Okay,
Right.
very good. And so, I know many people get their tax bill and see just the costs going up with everything, and they want to stay in their home. And the kids have moved out and they have all this space. And, as we get older, many of us get more isolated. And, it's not good to, I think, be alone so much. And many people don't want to be alone. So, how does one go about if they are in that situation? Is that like the typical person who would open their home up for that? Is it?
Yeah, that would be wonderful. People, providers share their home for various reasons. And those are two of them that you have just kind of talked about. One is that they're for companionship. They're feeling socially isolated. Sometimes, I have a couple of ladies I'm working with now lost their husbands, and it's new. And so at night, they're fearful to be home alone.
It's a new feeling, and many people
Yes.
don't want to be alone and
Exactly.
prefer not to. And
Exactly. And I have a match that about ready to make. Actually, two seekers that are friends moving in with another lady who just lost her spouse in the fall of last year. And
awesome.
yeah, and so I think it's going to be a really good match. Not only will it help financially for all three parties, but it will also provide some companionship, for the provider, which she's missing.
So PLOWS steps in and says, okay, do you screen these people? How do I know if I have a home and I want to let someone in? How do I know? I mean, do they just show up like the old college dorm? Hi, I'm your roommate, and you better make it work.
Yeah. So
It's not
I'm
like that, is
yeah,
it?
No, it is not. It's
Okay.
very involved, very comprehensive. I work in the shared housing just myself. So typically the process that will happen is people will call once they hear about our shared housing program, or they may be calling about affordable housing for seniors, or even younger folks. So I'll take them through the process of what are you looking for, what can you afford, and then start talking about shared housing if it seems like that would be a fit for them. So from there, I do a telephone assessment, then we meet face to face. I usually like to meet them where they're living at so I can take a look at how they're living and have kind of an idea of what it might be like for them to live with another person, someone they don't know.
Right.
And then I do ask for 4 references, which I check. So I vet them, the best I can, and
Do they meet beforehand and say,
So-
hey, let's see, let's go to lunch, let's
sometimes that will happen after the introduction. So, I kind of talk about expectations, what the seeker is looking for, and then I try to match that person's expectation with the providers that I have. So there may be one or two providers that I think, oh, this might be a fit. So I will, sometimes I physically will take them, or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if they're not driving or they don't have a car, I can do that on occasion, or we usually will meet there. I'll give them the address the day ahead of time after I've talked with
Mm-hmm.
the provider, and the provider's like, okay, let's try this. So then there's an introduction. We spend some time together talking about expectations, rent amount, those types of
Mm-hmm.
things. And then it's solely up to the home provider and the seeker, primarily the home provider, whether they feel that they would want this person to move in with them.
Beautiful.
So
So do you provide after services? So you check up maybe a month later, see it's working out,
yes,
you
I
know?
sure do, because, you know, it can be a difficult transition for both parties, for sure,
Uh-huh.
living with a stranger in their home that they're not familiar with.
But think of
So,
how wonderful that is for someone who has an interest in that. Like, what a great, I didn't know this was an option for many people, and it's a no-brainer if you think about it.
absolutely.
So, is there a greater need for home people who have rooms or people who need rooms? Where's the need greater?
For the home providers, the need is greater.
Okay.
Particularly, we've identified the Oaklawn area as an area that we'd really like to expand the program,
Okay.
and as well as seekers, but primarily the providers for right
Okay.
now. So,
So let's talk about the seekers. Tell me the typical seeker, if there is one, or what they're going through, what would make them interested in this.
so each person's story is different.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I will get phone calls, as I said, do a telephone assessment, talk with them about their story, you know, what has brought them here to this point in
Mm-hmm.
time. Sometimes for some folks, they're homeless, you know, so I'm also working with them around options to
Mm-hmm.
find some maybe transitional housing
Mm-hmm.
or temporary housing, because shared housing is not emergency housing and it's
Mm-hmm.
not temporary housing.
Right.
So, you know, we're looking for something permanent for both folks
Yeah.
that are involved in the match. So, you know, I do have a lot of, you know, younger folks right
Mm-hmm.
now that I'm working with, 60 or younger, and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, trying to, you know, help them find something. I think what happens a lot of times is unemployment,
Mm-hmm.
which then can lead to an eviction. Once there's an eviction on your record, it is very hard to
Mm-hmm.
find housing, and affordable housing for that matter. You know, so, and kind of the average rent amount for our shared housing program is anywhere between maybe 5 to 550.
Mm-hmm.
So it's much more affordable for folks.
Oh yeah.
And
Well, think of how many people are living on fixed incomes that,
absolutely.
I just very sadly lost my father,
Oh, I'm
recently,
sorry.
and he was almost 99 years old,
Oh my
and he
gosh.
retired in 1982, and he has not really had raises or anything, and, thank God he was a saver and he never really needed anything from me. He was able to stay in his home. But how frightening is it? We see what costs are and how they go up like crazy, and and if your money is not increasing, it's frightening. You want that sense of security. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, I think people enter into the shared housing arrangement for different reasons, but
hmm,
primarily it is for financial security, and or companionship,
good.
you know. So, but yeah, people are on fixed incomes, and, you know, when you get a slight increase, then your Medicare's
Yeah,
premium is increased. So, you know, it's a, you know, it's a tough
yeah.
balance. What am I going to pay for this month, you
I
know?
know, and you see people not getting their medication and doing
Absolutely.
reckless things, and it's a frightening choice. So it's great to have this option. Now, are most people like women and women, men and women, men and men? How is it? Is it?
Primarily, my matches are usually women and women and men and men.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, I'll have a female provider who doesn't mind, you know, renting to a man. I have one lady right now that I'm trying to find somebody for her.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, she's not picky. She's very flexible, and she'd
Mm-hmm.
be okay with that. So it really kind of depends upon the person and the
And are more
individuals.
of the seekers women or more of the seekers men? Or is it just a 50-50 mix?
You know, it's interesting. I would say it's about a 50-50 mix. Sometimes I feel like I'm working primarily all with men, and then, you know, I'll have an influx of, you know, ladies that are looking for housing as well. So it kind of really depends, you
Good.
know, on what's happening. So it's a nice, diverse mix of folks that I work with, for sure.
So how did PLOWS get involved in this, and why is PLOWS involved in this? Like, tell me why.
So the reason PLOWS is involved is, we are the premier aging agency, in Suburban Cook County for the Palos, Lamont, Orland, and Worth townships. And it's a nice, innovative program that we've been doing since probably 88,
Wow.
89.
Wow. So this
Yeah.
is not new. This has been
No.
going on all along.
Yes, it has, and we
No one
started.
knows about it.
Yeah, and we started in the old cook school,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah, right across the street
yeah,
it would have
here
been.
at Oak Lawn. So we've been doing it a long time. Back then, it was super innovative, and it still is very innovative now. And it's a nice fit to our other programs, and very few agencies offer this type of a program. So, I think it's a nice complement to what we do. And what I always like to say too is when people come in maybe through our intake process and end up with housing, and I'm speaking to them, I feel as though like that's the gatekeeper to the rest of the agency. So quite often, as we've talked about people on fixed incomes, I will, talk with our advocacy unit, which is a unit that helps apply for benefits like such as SNAP, or Medicare, Medicaid, those types of things. So quite often, I would say probably 80-90% of the time, I'm making a referral or talking with our advocacy folks to contact the client I'm working with and make arrangements. And I would say most times we're applying for benefits for them at that point, which we can help them with as well.
So let's step back a minute. If someone's watching this and they know of a situation where that party might benefit from this, how would they reach you?
So the best thing would be to call us at our phone number, which is 708-361-0219.
Okay.
And we're also on Facebook, and we also have our website, which is www.plows.org.
PLOWS.org. Okay. Very good.
Yeah, so, and we would welcome calls and, very excited. I'm very excited about hopefully expanding particularly.
Yeah,
in
I'm
this
excited
area.
you're here to talk about it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
So, what else do we need to know about this? So, if someone's interested in doing this, they would reach out to you and you would have a little procedure, this intake procedure.
Absolutely. So, and I also tell folks when they're calling me, don't put all your eggs in one basket because it will take a little bit of time.
Correct.
On rare occasion, I might. In fact, I just, which I say is very, very much of an outlier. I was working with a client one week, and the following week we had a match for her, which was very unusual, and it was very timely because what had happened was she had to be.
Excuse me.
She had to be out of her house that she was sharing with another woman, which we had not set up. She had found that arrangement for herself. And she had to be out that Saturday. And so she had movers coming, and I was, kind of telling her, I don't know how this is going to work, if this is going to work. So, so quickly. I knew it would work, but I didn't know how quickly. So anyways, yep. And it worked out wonderfully. She had moved out that Friday. She was in her new, with the share, the
So,
provider.
what's the typical time it takes? Is it 90 days? Is it 6 months? Is it 2 weeks?
It varies. Really, it depends upon the providers that I might happen to have at that time. It also depends upon the seeker themselves. If I can do a couple of introductions with a number of providers, it gives them an option, as to what might be the best fit for them. I don't always have 2 or 3 providers. I might just happen to have one at that point in time. So it will depend. But I would say on average, maybe a month to 2 or 3 months. It just kind of depends, on who's available and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So
And so they rent a room in the house, and
Correct.
they obviously probably would share the kitchen. Do they need their own bathroom, or how does that work?
it varies on providers. I've had several providers that have actually had 2-bedroom, 2 baths. So then the seeker will be able to have their own private bathroom. They always have a private bedroom. That's a requirement, that everyone have their own private quarters. And then the common areas of the home are shared. So the kitchen, refrigerator, cabinets, laundry facilities, if there's a family room, living room, those types of things. Those are all the common areas will be shared.
Good, good. And would this work for a family as well? Let's say a family, has their one of the kids left, and now there's an empty bedroom. I mean, would that be a good scenario, or is it mostly seniors who are looking for a quieter kind of atmosphere than a bunch of kids and
Uh,
dogs and
yeah, well,
soccer.
yep. That might be a very good scenario. It really
Okay.
depends upon the person. Because quite often I do have much younger seekers, so that might actually be a good fit for someone. I've not had that type of a placement
Okay.
yet at this point. I would love to.
Well, we're just
Um,
talking different options.
Yeah, and I would love that.
Yeah,
That
so
would be a great fit for someone.
so what question should someone ask themselves if they're thinking of doing this?
I think the biggest question is, you know, what you can afford and the rent amount. Are you willing, are you able to be flexible in that kind of an environment?
Mhm.
And, I also talk with people about areas that they're looking
Mhm.
for. So it's, something to consider, if you're working in a specific area and you are taking public transportation, you need to consider,
Mhm.
transportation back and forth, and those kinds of things.
So, very good. Trying to think of what else on this one. So, can anyone use these services? Who can use the PLOWS services? You have to be senior.
Correct. So,
Okay.
but for shared housing, we are able to work with disabled as well as any age range, as long as you have to be 21 or older.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's nice within our program. We're pretty flexible with what we can do and where we can go.
That's really wonderful. Now, when I think of, someone who says, well, maybe I'm going to get a roommate and try to save money, and, their options are really put an ad in the paper, maybe the church bulletin, and none of those people get screened at all to the degree you're screening them.
Correct.
And that support, gives someone a big sense of security that this is going to work out. This is going to be good for everyone. And what a great resource.
Yeah, it is wonderful. My one lady that I'm working with who, would like to have a gentleman or a lady with her, she had tried it on her own and put something on Craigslist and she had gotten,
Yeah.
which is not anything I would really recommend.
Yeah, Craigslist is the Wild West.
Yeah,
And who knows,
yeah. So, I mean, I
anything
think
goes. Yeah.
it's a safer, situation with us.
Yeah.
We have a lot of oversight with the
Good.
program and I continue to remain involved and mediate anything that will come up.
Okay.
So
How
which is
long
also
do the
nice.
people stay on average? Is it
So that's a great question. We've had some matches that last 30 months to 30 years. We had a match that lasted that long.
wow?
So, and I was involved last year with an older lady who had been with her provider for about 8 years. And the reason the match had ended was because the provider had passed away. And she had really become her family. So I found another location, another provider for her. And it has worked out wonderfully well.
Wonderful.
And they've really kind of become each other's companions and family.
Yeah.
So one likes to cook, the other one doesn't. And so it's very supportive environment for both
Yeah.
of them.
Very good. Well, if someone again has an interest in this or wants more information, can you say that number again?
Absolutely. So that's 708-361-0219, and that's the PLOWS Council on Aging.
Should they ask for Aileen?
They certainly can.
Okay.
I will look forward to those calls.
Very good. Is there anything I missed? Anything you want to go over that we didn't cover?
I think we've covered it pretty well. I mean, I would like to say that I think this program is great because it allows older adults to remain in place and age in place, I should say, remain in their homes with support from PLOWS as well as the person that
I can't say enough how important it is for people to do that and to have that as an option. Everyone fears, having to go to a nursing facility, or being homeless or having to do something, maybe leave the home that they've loved, and have been, it's wonderful to have an option. Wonderful, wonderful. And I thank you for all the good work you're doing for our seniors and the organization of PLOWS. If anyone ever has a request from PLOWS, try to show them some love because they're a wonderful organization. And I just can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you for having us and letting me come on and talk about our programs.
Okay, so shared housing, who knew? Give Aileen a call. She wants to hear from you.
Please.
Okay, thank you very much.